Welcome back to Trail and Ultra Running Training. My name is Will Frantz. I'm a running coach and a strength coach, and the whole goal of this podcast is to help you train a little better so that next time you're out on the trails, you can perform a little better and have some more fun. If you like the information, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe, or leave a rating or review, or even just share it with somebody. Any of those things would help increase the spread and tell the robots that this is something that somebody enjoys listening to, and I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, today let's discuss food stuff. And I'm going to be very open for a minute about food. I put out an email about this. If you already read then you've heard this. But it's less helpful, this whole conversation without the story, and I wanted to go a little deeper into the problems than I did in the email. So I'm going to kind of retell some of the story. Um, I struggle with food things, and I realize that is vague, and it's intentionally vague because I don't want to in any way um, disrespect or belittle the struggle that people with like full-on eating disorders have, because I do not have an eating disorder. I have disordered eating. I struggle to fuel well, and then I tend to have a binge response, and we can get deeper into that. But I don't have anorexia. I don't have bulimia. I definitely have body dysmorphia from what I can tell. Um, Based on because this is I giggle because like the only you don't really know if you have body dysmorphia from yourself. You just somebody else tells you how you look, and that's not how you think you look. And when enough people tell you how you look and it doesn't comport with how you think you look, then you kind of have body dysmorphia. It's weird. The brain's weird. Anyway, I don't have an official eating disorder, and honestly, I'm very thankful because I could. Um, but I do struggle to fuel well, and a lot of that comes from stuff that happened when I was younger, right? And as a teenager, I carried a lot of extra body fat, and there are many reasons for this. Some of it's just genetic. I went through puberty late. I wasn't able to breathe very well, so cardio things were hard for me, even though I played sports and I was like a dedicated athlete. Every year, I like could never do a lot of the extra training. And in retrospect, it's because I had like nasal passage issues, but whatever. And I used food at the time and still do as a comfort. And I have some tendencies towards binging. I always have. I have an unreal ability to eat a lot of food. Um, I'm always the guy that finishes it, right? Like if we go out with other people and people are wondering if it's worth sharing or if somebody's going to finish it, I will finish it. I will always finish it, and that's fine. I like food. I'm a foodie. I like to eat good food. And that has ups and downs, but it's not like it is a deeper problem. Now, in my early 20s, I lost a bunch of body fat through a one meal a day diet. It was the old Ori Hofmeckler, like warrior diet. Anybody's ever been, if anybody's been in the fitness industry long enough to know what that is, and basically drink coffee all day and then eat as much food as you want for dinner. There's a bit more to it, like ordering of like make sure you eat some vegetables first and then protein and grains, blah blah blah. But not really enough for it to matter. Like it was drink coffee for 22 hours a day and then eat food. And it helped me lose weight, like a lot of it. I also started exercising a couple times a day, so we're not going to belittle the effect that that had on. I also had nasal surgery on my 19th birthday. So there's a bunch of factors, and I think this is one of these things when you see people on the internet and they tell you their story. I could remove any chunk of that, and it would make one thing or another really stand out and sell. But the honest answer is, as always, as with most people, it was a confluence of things. I have binging tendencies, so a diet that allowed me to restrict my calorie intake while leaning into my binging tendencies was super useful for me. I don't think it was positive long term, which we'll get to, but in terms of losing a bunch of body fat very quickly, definitely worked. I was in college at the time, and my schedule was a mess. I took like all the credits. I did a couple sports. I helped manage and run the frisbee team. So I didn't have a lot of time. So my exercise regimen was I figured out how to do stuff at home. It was a body weight thing. And as a result, I could just work out while reading philosophy books. Like I'd read a chapter, do some workout stuff, read another chapter, do some workout stuff. And that was kind of how I spent a good year or two of my college, like the last 2 years of my college life. And I also got into cycling, which didn't require as much learning as running, right? So after I got nasal surgery on my 19th birthday, breathing became easier. Wow, when you can actually breathe through your nose, that's kind of magic immediately. And it made sports a little easier. And running was still really hard, but cycling got smoother, right? So I started to kick that into gear. And I, between all of those factors, I lost a bunch of weight quickly, like 50 pounds in 6 months. And also between all those factors, I was getting injured a lot. Now, this didn't feel that weird because I always kind of got injured a lot. I don't think I have the best tendons and ligaments and stuff genetically, but it didn't help that I wasn't eating enough food. And like, just a reminder, 50 pounds in 6 months is a lot. Like, I just can never remember exactly how fast it was, but it was far less than a year. And that was too fast. And it led to a lot of habits that, you know, propagated down the line. Now, at the time, I just thought, well, I've always had these kind of injury things. Um, and athletes get hurt. You're training a lot. Of course, you're going to get hurt. And again, that was partially true, but the fueling didn't help. And let's look, almost 15 years in the future at this point. It has had some downstream effects that I wish I didn't have to deal with as someone who takes athleticism like somewhat seriously in my mid 30s. I don't have a normal hunger signal. Unless I plan it out, I'm going to forget to eat until 5 or 6 p.m. And this comes a lot as a result of just habits I've set over the past decade and a half. I'll drink some coffee, I'll switch to water around noon, and then suddenly it's the workday, end of the workday, and I'm kind of hungry. But even then, that hunger is more just like I'm tired and kind of bitchy. And that is kind of how hunger represents for me unless I like don't eat for multiple days. And when I was a machine worker, that was a big advantage. I could do more work. I didn't get hungry. I didn't have to eat in the snowcat, etc. But now I work in a gym and I train people to lift, and I really care about my own training. So being not having a signal that, oh, you need to eat now is not helpful to me, right? And so in addition to like walking around and picking stuff up all day, like it is impossible for me to do my job well and get less than like 15,000 steps in a day. I'm also like slamming my own training in the middle somewhere usually as well. And I just don't really get that food signal. So that's annoying. Now, I've been trying to be better lately about this. I bought some food items that I could keep in the office, like bars or whatever. I've been trying to make an effort to eat food, even if it wasn't a whole meal. And for the most part, I was doing fine. Breakfast was the big failing point, if we're going to be super open, but at least I was getting something and not waiting to eat until 5. And then at the end, it might have been middle actually of a couple weeks ago, I crashed hard. And when you've done the overtraining under recovery thing, and I'm not here to like debate what it is. I know I don't actually train enough to overtrain. I just don't recover enough, but it's the same symptoms, so who cares? And when you've done this enough times, you know what it feels like. And so I woke up last Saturday, and my first thought was, shit, how did I let this happen again? Because you just know what's up. And the honest answer is because just because I was eating more doesn't mean it was enough. And in some ways, the fact that I was having a little bit of food at lunch was almost detrimental because it was like giving me an excuse to keep training harder and not actually giving me enough to recover, right? And due to my past and general proclivities around food, I'm just going to have to work harder at it. And that's annoying. It's going to be a little tedious. I'm going to have to like probably set reminders. And uh, if I don't eat, then I don't get to train kind of thing. Like if I'm going to perform the way I would like to perform and set the example I would like to set and be even the mediocre athlete I would like to be, then is the thing I need to take seriously. Because it's not just training and exhaustion and that I can't present to the world how I want to. It's also like I'm tired of getting hurt. My body is like riddled with tendon and ligament damage from years of this shit, and I'm just done with it, right? And I'm more done with that than I am unwilling to make sure I eat some yogurt on the way out the door. So it is as simple as it is annoying, and it is tiring, but not impossible. And very honestly, it's not that hard. It's simple, just or it's not that complicated. I just need to eat food. It is hard for many reasons, but it is not complicated. Now, there are a lot of reasons why I'm putting this out, largely because I have this conversation with people I coach a lot. And I think, well, fuck, I know that there is a crossover of eating disorders and the ultra community. Not a surprise. We know that eating disorders are partially a food thing, but largely a control thing and a like push for dopamine response. And surprise, when you have a bunch of people who run 100 miles, they might be a little sensitive to dopamine. Um, so there's going to be some crossover there. And as I will often say with people, like, not a therapist, you should often talk to one, but you do have the choice of eat more food, stop training, or get injured, right? Like, these are the choices you get to make as an adult, but these are the options. And this is the conversation that, if you don't have a coach or someone that you're able to have this with, you need to have with yourself because there are only so many outcomes to underfueling for a long time and uh, training heavily. They all lead to large problems in one way or another. Now, occasionally, I spend more time on social media than I'd like, and I scroll far enough that I get fed these memes or posts or whatever about fasted training. And sometimes it's about fasted training, sometimes it's about fasted training for fat loss, sometimes it's about using these things to push ketones and fat metabolism and all this shit. And I just get tired because at the end of the day, fasted training does not improve performance at all. It doesn't make you run faster. It doesn't make you run farther. It doesn't um, make you adjust your metabolism at all. Like it barely has any effect whatsoever on fat metabolism. They've shown that even if increasing the percentage of fuel that you used from fat were a performance benefit, which it is not, even if it were, 80 to 90% of that shift is going to happen from whatever you eat throughout the rest of your day. So you could go on a 2 hour fasted run all you want. If you're not eating a relatively ketogenic diet the rest of your day, if you eat pizza or if you eat, pasta, or if you eat any of these carbs that, taste good and should probably have a place in your life unless you have celiac disease, you're not going to make any meaningful changes to your fat metabolism. all it does, all of like long fasted training session does is it increases your risk for overtraining, injury, and probably boosts your disordered eating risk. And just because some fucking guy on the internet says something about the benefits of fasted training, how it shifts your fat metabolism, because some study on professional athletes showed this, or some study on untrained people showed that there was like a minor benefit and shift for the duration of them following whatever diet, doesn't make it a good idea. And the totality of the evidence is just against it. And to be clear, it's not always a guy. A couple of the biggest offenders of this shit for years were women, which is even more problematic in my mind because women already naturally burn a higher ratio of fats, and they tend to be either as a result of like social or norms or otherwise more susceptible to red S. I mean, it was called the female athlete triad for so long for a reason, but we're all susceptible to this stuff. Like if you underfuel and train hard for long enough, you're going to get hurt and there will be problems. And fasted training is not the way forward. Um, if for some reason, and there are a couple reasons, if you just can't get the gut thing under control, if you want to adjust food strategies to improve that, then you will have to do that in your day-to-day life. You will have to do what someone like Jeff Browning does and actually follow a largely keto, paleo-esque diet day in and day out throughout the year, week in, week out, eat fewer carbohydrates so you actually adjust towards that style of eating, and then that might make some changes for you on the trail. It is not it is not going to happen during a training stimulus. So just fuel your runs. And if you've done all the work to get there, then great. Maybe we need to make some adjustments. Everybody, like the human race is a bell curve, right? And like we're going to have people who respond to a variety of things. And maybe your gut just isn't going to get there and you're going to have to go the more paleo-ish style of eating just in order to make you fine. But for most people, it's not the case. We just need to train your body to intake food while running. And for years, I thought I couldn't eat and train. I would not eat dinner before going to frisbee practice because it always made me feel really sick. And this resulted in me eating dinner at like 10:30 at night, which of course pushed my sleep back, which the only time we could get the fields when you're a frisbee team, like you don't get fields during normal times of day. You train from like 8 to 10 p.m. Super fun. So we like so I wouldn't get to bed till like midnight, and then I woke up at like 6, and it was just, sleep deprived all the time. Let's be real. It was actually closer to like 3 a.m. and 7, but whatever. Um, and it's just not it's not true, right? Like it's this story that I told myself for a very long time that I can't eat and then perform well because I feel sick. But I just never really gave it a shot. And I've been doing a little more work in that realm, and I mean, it hasn't been perfect, right? Like I kind of feel a little bit of like struggle in the stomach, but it's not as bad as it used to be, and it's getting a little better week to week. So we can make these changes. We have to just be willing to like put in the time and the work. Now, when I see some people talking about these like fasted training sessions or whatever, these metabolism adjustments, and it's not, I also don't want to overlook the fact that at least half the time, this person is also like some lean person with a six pack who mentions almost as like an afterthought that it helps keep you leaner in the off season, right? Like, oh, it does all these things for performance, and oh, look at my six pack, which I don't know their motivations are, but I do spend enough time in the entire realm of the fitness industry knowing that all of the time and money in the industry where I work is focused on fat loss. That's like almost all of it. It is a multi-trillion dollar a year industry because we don't feel good about our bodies and we think we need to be absolutely shredded to do anything. And I would just say, like, one, not necessarily a ketogenic and or paleo or whatever diet is not always going to keep you super lean. That comes from a calorie deficit. And this can be a whole other podcast if we want it to be, but you can be lean on a whole wide range of foods. It can be easier for some people when they remove carbs. Totally understand that. Um, until they like often overeat reactively in response, but you can absolutely be over fat on a keto diet. You just eat too much peanut butter, right? Like that's really, really easy. But I would also like to just say that we're trying to, in some ways, have our cake and eat it too. And by have our cake, I mean following unrealistic body norms. And by eat it, I mean trying to fuel for performance, where maybe we create a little acceptance and also focus more on what our body can do rather than what it looks like. I'm not saying appearance doesn't matter, but of course it matters, especially to you. Your personal appearance matters to you. I totally understand that. I feel that. But if we could just take like a small step in the direction of what can my body do versus what does it look like, I think it's really helpful. And this is the thing that I've done. I've worked I've done a lot of mental work to try to do. And it's hard. And if we're just a little, the more I focus on the fact that I can run like a marathon now without it being a big quibble, or the fact that I can lift really heavy weights or climb up walls and do all this stuff and not focus on the fact that I don't have a six pack anymore. And at the time I did have a six pack, I was arguably a worse athlete who was injured all the time. It's important. And if you want abs, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, we should understand it's probably not going to make you a better runner. And if we're talking about a top spot on a podium, then maybe, and we can have that conversation about weight. But if we're talking about like solidly middle of the pack runners just trying to set a new PR and be better than you were last year, we just need to stop looking for shortcuts in diet and just train better mostly. Like I don't say that to be mean. It's just the training is what's going to take you the farthest. Run more miles, do more cross training, do speed work, lift weights, fuel your training, like do the boring work that allows you to hydrate well, all of this stuff. And if we do that, your body will respond. And if you've done that for a few years in a row, and you're seeing a ton of progress and you want to get that like top five or top three, then you can quibble over whether like 5 pounds makes a difference or not. It probably still won't, if I'm being honest. It probably will still come down to how hard you push yourself on your hill intervals. But at least it's a conversation when we're getting there. But for most of us, it's not even, it doesn't matter. And you're fine. And we just need to fuel well so that we stay healthy and can perform our best and keep doing so for years and have a good time. Anyway, I'm going to stop taking up time on this. I hope this was helpful to someone. Eat, fuel, support your body so it can support you. Don't listen like blindly to people on the internet, including me. Fuel well, fuel often, and you will see your performance improve. You'll see sleep go up. You will see recovery go up. One of the biggest things I see with athletes who fuel their training well is they make notes like, I thought I was going to be sore today because I ran 4 hours yesterday and I'm a little sore, but like not really. That's because you fueled your training well and you like started the recovery process from mile one. And if we do that, we're going to be able to put in more miles in the long run, which allows us to actually increase that mileage throughout the week and perform better. If you have any questions, as always, shoot me a message, like DM me on Instagram, reply to an email I send, any of these things. That would be great. Less Facebook. I just don't spend as much time on there. But if you shoot me a private message, I'll often get it. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Eat some good food and go have some fun on the trails.